Hi.
Hiya.
Thanks for your time, for your invitation, for your support of my country. I'm really very glad to meet you personally here in the Parliament, in the building of the Parliament, in your office. You know that I was astonished when I saw your video with the Ukrainian family, and it was done during the Independence Day of Ukraine. So, do you remember actually the 24th, the date of the beginning of the war, the invasion, the February 24th? Where you were that day? I mean, did you believe in the war, that Russia could start its full-scale invasion?
I think I was stunned that Russia had decided just to take this step and destroy its own reputation, internationally rip up the rule book about what is expected in a modern society. And I was amazed that Putin had allowed himself to put himself in that situation. Beforehand, he had the world at his footstool, he was travelling around the world, he could make the case for Russia, and then suddenly he just flicked the switch and went back.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it's very sad. It's been a failure of international diplomacy that was allowed to happen. But we now have this awful, brutal, horrific war against innocent Ukraine, and we've got to stand shoulder to shoulder and say we're here to help, and we are helping. We're giving more money than anyone else next to America. We're making sure that there's proper armaments to the military, proper training, and there's all sorts of other things that are happening, and we want to keep that up. And we can't allow this war to slip down the priority list. We've got to realise that this war in the middle of Europe has got to be won, and then we've got to win the peace.
You know that you represent a unique political power, because usually when I speak with the ruling parties, they say we are supporting Ukraine. The opposition leaders usually say we will support Ukraine, but you are some kind of in the middle of this situation. I mean, you are a reflection of the British society. Is it possible to say that the British society is 100% pro-Ukraine? Nevertheless, the position of politicians, do you know what happened, for example, in Eastern Europe? We see how dependent the public opinion on the politicians in Eastern Europe. What we can see here, how it depended on the British politics.
Well, I think the public mood is definitely behind Ukraine, and I think you're very fortunate because you've got all of the main lines of British society. You've got the main political parties. You also have the media on your side, which don't underestimate the power of that, because the sway is that we're backing the right side here, and everyone's behind the right side. Now, if, for example, I mean, just take the situation in the Middle East and Israel. I mean, the media are not taking a side. They can't even call Hamas terrorists, for goodness sake. So that makes it much harder. Whereas you have, and you're very fortunate to have this, that support, that genuine support and empathy at worst, sympathy at best with what's happened to your people. And I don't think there's a hatred for Russia, because this society has been very open to Russia. We have huge historical links with Russia, but they know that Russia's done wrong. So you have that on your side, and don't dismiss it easily. That's been hard won.
I know, and that's why I really wanted to thank you personally for your support. You as a politician, your society. I know that you are sincere. You know, before the interview, I was speaking with you, and you was telling me a lot of different stories about how you supported the Ukrainian families here. My last question concerns, I think, the geopolitics. What challenges do you see personally that can come next year? I mean, geopolitical, maybe the other conflicts in other part of the world. For what we should be ready, or against what we should be ready? What are the challenges?
Well, before I answer that, and I'm not being a politician here, I will say that the families that have come to the United Kingdom have contributed. You know, they just haven't sat here and begged. They're far too proud and far too energetic to do that. I mean, I welcomed 36 families into one town in my constituency. Within weeks, they all got a job. They all wanted to contribute. Their kids are in our schools, and there's now an understanding about the Ukrainian situation, because you know that they're part of our community now. And Northern Ireland is one of those societies puts their arms around people and loves people, and those Ukrainian people are loved. And I think that's reflected in most of the towns and cities, not just in Northern Ireland, but across the UK, where the Ukrainian families have come. In terms of the big question, what's going to happen? Well, as you know, what's happened in the Ukraine has sucked all of the Russian forces from the high north. That's helped the American situation, it's helped the world geopolitical situation in terms of taking them away from that high north border. I think that at some point For example, if there's a Trump administration in the United States, there will be an immediate move for a peace process. Certainly, don't mistake the end of the hostilities as peace. That's only the start of something. Ukraine has to get a fair deal in that arrangement, and that will be the hardest struggle of all. Maybe not with blood, sweat and tears, but will be the hardest struggle politically to achieve a victory. And that's going to be a very, very harsh step. But I think we are moving to the final phase of the outrage of the war, to the next phase of winning the peace and then winning a settlement for the Ukrainians.
Thank you very much for your sincere support of Ukrainians and for your frank, fresh analysis of the current situation.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for being here.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.